Hi, my name is Krzysztof Piskorski and I'm the lead writer and co-designer of Lands of Evershade. And this is a first in a series of 3 development updates where we will show you the basic concept of the game. First, before I begin, I'd like to thank all of you. You've shown enormous interest in Lands of Evershade. The campaign page currently has 21,000 followers, and I think the most frequently asked question we've seen in the comment is about the actual game, the gameplay loop, how it looks like, how it plays. Well, I'm not surprised, because when we showed the game during our next presentation, we focused mostly on the setting and the art, and there's a good reason for that. Lands of Evershade is the final project of the year for us, and as such it's not as far along as, for example, Grim Coven, that will show very detailed gameplay very soon. But that being said, it is receiving a lot of testing. We are improving the components and designing them, so we thought that even at this early stage we can already show you some basics. And while today's update will likely not answer all of your questions, it will, I think, be at least a good first step. But before we proceed, there's one very important announcement. Just like I mentioned a moment ago, the game is still in a very early development. This means that all the components and all the boards and all the layouts and arts you see are by no means final and may change, and in fact will change from now until the final prototype that will be shown to reviewers and to our backers well before the campaign, and again before the campaign itself. And now, with that being said, let's jump in. When you start the Lands of Evershade campaign, you start with a step that's quite new compared to our previous story-based and campaign-based games such as ISS Vanguard or Tainted Grail, the character creation. Because in Lands of Evershade, you can play as character of any race, any origin and any profession that exists within the game world. So the first component most players will use is the one we have prepared for you here. The Lands of Evershade Player's Handbook. Now, this is, of course, a very early version. The final book, we estimate, will be around 260 pages long and will be full of art, lore and interesting varied choices that you can make when building your own character. So, the first step is something that very closely resembles a session 0 from RPG games. You dive into the world of the game, you read up on available professions, available classes, available origins, you make good informed choices, and for some players this process can take even up to 2 hours. But if you want to jump into the action straight away, if you, for example, have friends over and you can't afford to go through full character creation process, the Player's Handbook will also facilitate that. It will contain several fun pre-built characters that you can grab and jump into the game straight away. But we believe that for most players, this full character creation within a very detailed, beautiful handbook will be a good experience they won't wish to skip over. Now, let's make an example character that we will use for the remaining parts of this development video. The character is created in the character tray. Beautiful space where you build your character from tokens that represent your attributes, your equipment, your character choices. However, the details of this tray are still to be determined. We're experimenting with several solutions of several sizes. We're testing them against groups of players. We have 2 dual-layer cardboard trays, triple-layered cardboard trays. We're experimenting with plastic solutions, so I can't promise you the final thing will look exactly like the test tray I have here, but for the purpose of this video, we will use this tray that's now in front of me. We start character creation with an empty character tray. Take the Lands of Evershade Player's Handbook, and in the first steps, the Player's Handbook will guide me through assembling all the components I will need to create this character, and some basic lore of the game that I will not read because you already know something about it. And that's when we arrive at the first important choice, a choice of our playable race. The game will contain several playable races. Some might be vaguely familiar to players, some are brand new and interesting. For the purpose of this video, we will be creating an elf character. So let's go to the elf chapter of the Player's Handbook. Elf. It's hard to be the bearer of ancient knowledge in a world where fate is a constant danger. Elves do not shy away from this sad duty, and yet they are not eager to share their elden lore with anyone. Few would understand their stories. Among themselves, elves still recall the glories of the great yawning depths where they first came to be, or practice customs that lost their meaning since their mysterious exodus to the surface world. They whisper of forgotten gods whose names mean little now. Ningalshar of the Starizon, Laharup of the Stone Dew, Anhenlil the Mold Father. The subterranean origin of this race also explains their long pointy ears, naturally white-skinned, and affinity to moon goddess Luada. Their hair glows faintly when in dark, and they wear it with pride, braided and exquisite hairstyles. Their clothes and jewelry have no equal. So, Elf is our choice of the playable race. So I'm inserting the elf token into the character tray, and the elf token, as you can see from the quite short backstory of the race, contains two keywords, elder and subterranean. And this is probably a good moment to talk a little more about the keywords and how they tie into the game. Every token we will insert during character creation, every item that you can equip, nearly every action and reaction card you gain during the game, they all contain keywords. And these keywords interface with various systems. And possibly the simplest example I can show is a combat scenario where you have a barrel of explosive powder stashed somewhere in the corner, and you require a fire keyword to trigger the explosion. And there are many ways you could achieve this fire keyword. For example, if instead of an elf you would create a fire-based race, one of your racial keywords could be fire. You could carry a torch, and it could also contain the fire keyword. You could have a fireball spell with a fire keyword, or a fire-based companion with a fire keyword. Now, this is not exactly new. Most of our narrative games did check for various conditions, but the difference is the scale, the seamlessness, and the freedom that comes with it. Again, for example, in Tainted Grail we could check, well, you can light this on fire if you have a torch item. But then players would wonder, okay, I don't have a torch item, but I'm using fire magic. Why can I use this to light the thing on fire? Or I don't have a torch, but I'm using bombs with fuses in combat. So obviously I have some way to lit the fuses. And in most games with predetermined content, there are many things you simply can't do. In Lands of Evershade, we're nudging those basic systems in a way that will grant you more freedom. So here, the answer to will it work or can I use this instead will most often be yes. Now that we have our elf character token, let's go back to the player's handbook and see what other things come with my choice of playable race. Now, the elf character also determines my starting attributes. Strength of 1, an agility of 2, intellect of 3, and charisma of 2. Now, we won't talk much about attributes in this update, because attributes and the basic systems of roles, actions and reactions is a topic of the second update, but attributes work just how you expect them to work in an RPG game. Now, the choice of Alf also determines my movement speed and my divinum die. Again, we will talk more about the divinum die when we get to the basic roles of the game. Now, the final important thing, the choice of race also gives me a small stack of starting action and reaction cards. Now, these cards depend on your race. For example, as an Alf, I get a limited endurance card. That's not as good, for example, as an endurance card that humans would have, but I get a nimble dodge action card that's much better than the dodge card other races could use. Finally, my choice of an Alf determines my starting hit points as 4. And that's it. Our character, our race style, our starting attributes, starting hit points, starting movement, starting divinum die, and first action and reaction cards we have received. Now let's move to the origin. So, where did our Alf came from? Who was he or she before they started the events of the game? There are many ways to choose an origin. We will pick one, and for this character we will pick a vagabond origin. Vagabond, your younger years were spent drifting from place to place along the roads of the Evershade, and a vagabond tile grants us 3 new keywords. Rural, you know much about everyday life and activities in small villages of the land. A wild keyword, the art of surviving on your own in the sprawling wilderness is no secret to you. And a stealth keyword, you've learned to become quiet and invisible if needs be. And it also grants us a first item. You start with a lucky charm item and 1 coin that goes to our pouch. Now that we determined our origin, it's time to make another choice. It's time to choose our profession. And just like with races, every profession available in the game will have a separate chapter in the player's handbook with beautiful art, lots of descriptions, as you can see on an example page right here in front of you. For this character, however, we'll choose a profession that might be more familiar to players who follow RPG games. We'll start with something simple, a paladin. A paladin, a young member of the Moonshield Order, you swore to protect the people of the law of the Evershade, just like Luada does, at any cost. With the strict knight code binding your hands, you're not well suited to treacherous or honorless acts, but the same code makes people more likely to trust you and causes simple folk to see you as their savior. Let's insert a paladin tile that comes with 3 keywords. Battle magic and warfare keyword that also determine your 2 secondary advancement trees. The first primary advancement trees is determined by your profession. And finally, the leadership keyword. Leadership people tend to naturally follow your lead. And that's not everything, because most professions come with several paths. As a paladin, we can either choose a protector path, a more combat-oriented path, or an arbiter path, a more law and diplomacy-oriented one. We will pick an arbiter. You are the voice of Luada, trying to bring reason and law to the conflicted parts of Evershade. People look toward you as a judge and a peacekeeper. Becoming an arbiter paladin will raise our charisma to 3. It will grant us more of the starting equipment, in this case a plain sword and a shield. And finally, it will grant us several more action and reaction cards that for the time being go to our pouch. Cards more related to your profession and the things you as an arbiter paladin can do in the game world. That's nearly everything. We have a character with some basic choices. Our sheet is almost ready to go. Now, what's left is picking our portrait. Let's go with this one. It matches an elf paladin well. And picking your model. Now, unfortunately, I don't have models with me yet, but you will be able to see one in the text of the update. Our character is now complete. But it doesn't mean that all the choices are behind us. In fact, a very important character choice happens after we start the game and after we meet up with other characters, up to 4 other players. When we meet up, at first they only know about our character what's obvious from our character trait, our race, maybe our origin, our profession, but then characters also pick in secret their secret origin. A secret origin is something akin to a personal quest or a personal storyline, and it's chosen from many available. Once you choose your secret origin, other players only see a keyword related to this origin. For example, for this paladin, we have a secret origin with keyword death. But only you, the owner of the character, will read the full backstory in the player's handbook, and you will know that death means that your character died sometime in the childhood from mysterious illness, came back to life several days later, and since then strange occurrences were following him or her on every step. And this secret origin will lead to many exciting encounters and many interesting choices that you will meet throughout the game. So after you choose your secret origin, that's still not everything you will choose, because obviously we have a character advancement system in the game. Quite a robust one with many possible advancements for each profession. And the way it works is, in short, as you progress through the game, you earn experience points, and whenever you fully fill your experience bar visible here, you gain a new advancement. So right now I have a 1 slot for 1 experience point in my bar, earning an experience point. The bar is full, I've gained an advancement, and I can check in the player's handbook what each of those slots does for my profession. And for Paladin, a first slot of the primary tree is a guided smite and battle prayer cards. Let's say it sounds interesting, so I'm adding this advancement, I'm receiving new cards, and now my slot for experience can hold 2 points, so I'm earning 2 more experience points, and this leads to the third advancement. Let's say I will start on one of my secondary trees, and now my experience slot can hold 3 experience points. With advancements come new cards, additional hit points that I can unlock, and obviously my character will gather interesting and useful equipment, but that's still not everything. As you can see here, after creating a character, almost half of the space in the token tray is left empty. Why? Well, it's up to you to decide what will happen here, because this space will be filled by various achievements and titles your character gains as they play through the game. For example, if you decide to lead a certain city to Doom, you could have a title called the Doom of Whitewell in your character tray. And again, this title will trigger as a keyword in several places in the game, leading to unexpected outcomes. So over time, as you acquire important decisions and important titles and important achievements, they will fill up here. Sometimes you will learn a new ability, new skill, and it can also be represented by a keyword. And finally, your various statuses. For example, if you're sick or ill, it can also lead to a token in your character tray that brings a new keyword and sometimes something else with it. And that's it. That's everything we had to show for you today. We have our character ready to go, and the next update will focus on the gameplay. Alright, that's everything we have prepared for you today. Our character is set up and ready to go, and in the next update we will take her on the road and show you the specifics of gameplay. Until then, we will post several pages from the player's handbook for you to enjoy. I think the final announcement of today's video is that the player's handbook, all 260 pages of it, should be available for you at the start of campaign, at the end of the year, to download, to read through, to enjoy. Thank you for your attention, and see you next time.